Very good evening, everybody. Welcome you all to the last session of this AOS. And today we have a very different session from all your ophthalmology. We'll be discussing some innovative solutions for 3D surgical recording in ophthalmology, especially with respect to use for teaching and demonstration purposes. We are all used to seeing surgical videos. They help us a lot for improving our surgical techniques, for introspective critical analysis of our techniques. However, the main drawback is that we are seeing all these things in two dimensions, and understanding of the depth is very, very important when it comes to learning ophthalmic surgeries. Hence, viewing the ophthalmic surgery in 3D is a different experience itself and will surely help all of us to become better surgeons. With that introduction, today I have with me a team of young, innovative surgeons who have made a mark for themselves in ophthalmology. I would say, if you compare them to the shares, they are the multi-bagger shares. We have Vishal Agarwal, who is a CS Rashmi awardee. We have Mahesh Kumar, who will be discussing with us his experience with Atervo 3D visual systems. Dr. Sumit Kanduja, an innovator par excellence, he will be sharing his experience about innovative 3D recording solutions. And we have another prolific innovator, John Davis Akara, who will be showing us how to record 3D using mobile phones. And we have one more star campaigner, Dr. Saurabh Patwardhan, whose FECO Shala you're all aware of. Without much ado, I request Dr. Vishal Agarwal to start his first talk on current medical grade HD recording systems and their limitations. Over to Vishal.
Good evening, Dr. Raju, and all the delegates who have logged in for today's course. And can you see my screen? So can I start?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
So I'll be speaking on medical grade recording solutions, their limitations in short. And to start with, for any recording system, you should know your equipment. You should know your microscope, what model it is, what beam splitter you have put on it, and the C mount, whether it is proprietary or third party. I'm going to discuss all these in my subsequent videos also. So I'm just enlisting them. And what type of camera equipment you have. I'm talking of 2D cameras here, like 3-chip HD, 4K cameras, or mirrorless cameras. And of course, all the fittings, whether they are tight, they are snugly fit, they don't have any peripheral ring protruding out, which can lead to scotomas and focusing issues. A small amount of physics is also essential for everybody to know and adjust in between the surgeries for the optimal outcomes and the best video recording, like white balance, ISO gain, Kelvin temperature readings, dynamic brightness, and many more. To define medical grade camera is a compact high definition capture device compatible with most output formats of medical equipment. The most important part is it should be easy to use. It has an ergonomic design, compact, and it has to be having a good functioning with easy archival properties. Mirrorless cameras I won't be discussing in detail. Basically, they have interchangeable lenses and make use of digital imaging sensor instead of a movable camera. The similarities in all these camera systems they have excellent video quality, and more specifically they are excellent in low light performance, more important in VR surgeries, in vitrectomies, in which we work in a low light environment, and all of them have a compact design. So the basic for HD video recording systems is a OA setup where you position your screen and your staff training for the basics of minor adjustments during your surgery. So the basics is the surgical video recording requires a lot of checks and rechecks even in a medical grade camera, and the surgery is more important initially than its display to an audience. So new surgeons should take it easy because they might be more conscious while doing a surgery. And this is the routine OA setup in which the screen is over the side and it should not be in the front. So as to if you have to recheck or check the picture quality, you just need to do a head tilt. So this is a small video of me operating, and you can see you need checks and to check the picture quality, and just a head tilt will suffice. If you place the screen in front of you, the microscope body will come, and you have to tilt all your body to see the screen, and that is like this. So that will not be very comfortable, and it can hamper and disturb your surgical maneuvers. The problem with HD cameras is it accentuates everything, the good things, even the bad things. So this is a dirty lens, and all the artifacts come on the screen and they are displayed on the recording, the final recording also. So you have to clean your lenses properly so that these artifacts are not there. And in this case, we clean the lens, and now you can see the picture quality, which is much more better than the previous one. And all these lashes should be, these are not visible, they might not be that apparent during the surgery, but they really get magnified in your final product. In this case, you are doing eyelid peeling, you will tell me what is wrong in this video, but you can see the instruments, they are old, they are used, they are reused, and they have a lot of scratch marks on that. So that also get magnified in your HD recording systems, and they have to be, if you want to show it at a competitive level, they should be new. For anterior segment work, you see every surgeon has its own preference of illumination settings, and this is not a preferred illumination setting because all the conjunctival vessels are blooming. So you have to see the screen, and you have to adjust the brightness in these cases. And this is a more natural color hue in which all the conjunctival vessels are visible. How much light your camera is getting, so that is a very important part. So the beam splitter, you should know the details of it. So previously most of the beam splitters from Zeiss were coming in 50:50. That means 50% light was reaching to you and 50 to the camera. Now the newer models have the 80:20, so that's not a problem. So this is a 50:50 beam splitter type, and you can see that this is optic disc pit case, and this was a pediatric patient, so I could not concentrate much on the recording part, and I had to increase the illumination for it to come optimal. But in a 80:20 part, you can see this is another optic disc patient, and you can see without any adjustments to the illumination or the brightness part, this is coming quite clear. So the knowledge of the type of beam splitter you have is very essential. So the machine has no brains. You need frequent settings change, anterior to posterior switchover. So there are multiple modes for saving. Mode 1, mode 2, and you can switch over to anterior to posterior just by pressing a button. But still, you need finer settings for different tissue texture and different setting. So this is a representative photo of the important part, which is the Kelvin temperature. So for anterior segment work, you need the temperature to be low because the microscope light is bright enough. When you go to a VR surgery or a posterior segment maneuver, you have to increase that light because you are working in a low light environment. So if you can see the screen, the top screen is 5000 K Kelvin temperature, and that is actually more unnatural in appearance. And the lower photograph is 3200 K, and that gives you a more natural photograph. And for anterior segment work, the range is around 3000 to 3500 Kelvin temperature. As you can see, this is a lower temperature, this is a higher temperature, and now this is a natural temperature because we have reduced the Ka temperature in this anterior segment clip. For the posterior segment clip, this is a low light setting. We have to increase it to 5000 and 5200 to make it more naturally appearing, and this is what the vitreous looks like under the oculars. And a good idea, these both clips are of a Yamane technique which I am doing, and both clips are good in quality, but the lower clip has a Zeiss overlay. So never put a Zeiss or a company logo overlay over a recording system, because the quality of the video deteriorates a little bit when there is a company logo over it, when there is an overlay. So they might be looking both on a cursory inspection both good, but without overlay clip is the better one. Another important part is a bad reflection. Whether you are focusing on a disc, whether you are injecting triamcinolone acetonide, whether you are working on a drop nucleus, or you are doing a coloboma RD, a lot of reflections from the light pipe come, and they disturb the view, and the quality of the picture is substandard, as you can see in these clips. This is a coloboma RD, a lot of reflection, so no details inside the coloboma are visible even with the HD recording system. So you have to adjust to this. This is a subretinal cysticercosis. You cannot make out whether you're removing a band or you're removing a cyst, because there's a lot of blooming in there. So you have to take care of these conditions where there's a lot of blooming. and you have to reduce the illumination intensity. And this clip, rectifies all that. As you can see, the illumination has been reduced and the light pipe is retracted towards the port. You can see every crystal of the triamcinolone acetonide clearly. And this is a cyst where you can see clearly. And these are the cysts which you can see clearly, which was not very clear in the previous clip. So, recording the periphery is a little difficult than the macular part. And because the light pipe is very near to your, the cutter. So a lot of reflections from your light pipe from the cutter, cause a lot of glooming. As you can see, you cannot see anything. But if you, again retract the light pipe while doing indentation and reduce the illumination intensity, the periphery will be also visible and the cutter probe will also be visible clearly. Macular recording is not that difficult because most of the cameras give a good macular recording. Just one point, when you stain it with BBG or trypan blue, you have to increase the illumination intensity because it becomes a little dark there. So for optimal quality, you just increase the intensity while you are peeling. So this is the case of another coloboma RD, in which all the reflections have been taken care of. And you can see even under air, the details inside the coloboma are being seen with the finer adjustment as I mentioned before. This I'll skip. One more high reflection case is albinotic fundus, as you can see. So another point here to make finer adjustments in your ISO settings and white balance and illumination settings, so that there are no reflections and you can see the vessels even in a low contrast setting like albinotic fundus. Having said that, the best recordings are with the chandelier light. So there are two types of chandelier lights. One is the fixed one which you can use, or one is the handheld chandelier light which you can use. So both are excellent for recording because it gives you a diffuse illumination, like in this case, and very low amount of reflection. Really excellent. This the main light has been turned off, and now I'm doing a self indentation with the fixed chandelier light. Comes up easily. But the problem lies when you go under air and there are a lot of reflections. So you have to take care while you go under air. You switch off the chandelier light or turn to a handheld torpedo light, so that, see, there are so many reflections of the chandelier light. Now it's a torpedo light, the chandelier has been switched off and you can see the disc and the macula clearly. So while doing maneuvers under air, you have to switch off the chandelier light. And the final video, there are multiple steps. You record in a chip, and then most of these cameras do not directly you cannot edit them, although they are under the MP4 format, but they lack the H.264 codec. So you have to embed that codec for it to be integrable into a video editing software. So I use Handbrake, which is a very good software. It's fast and it with a very less deterioration of the quality, it converts the MP4 into a editable format. And then I use the iMovie software or the Final Cut Pro for my final editing. So this is the 3-chip camera video. This is the medical grade video for GRT, and this is from my good friend Dr. Raju. He's using his mirrorless cameras. All are excellent videos. It depends on what you want. So whether you want to just record videos for learning purpose and improving on your surgeries, whether you want to present them in a conference, or whether you want to compete, and what your budget is. So there are limitations for medical grade cameras. They are very expensive. A lot of large files are there which are segmented and you have to collate them, and there are conversion issues. So you have to go through multiple channels for a final video product. Upgrade issues also, and performance issues in your area. For me, my take, if if you ask me, the best videos are shot on medical grade cameras if all the caveats, including the price and no return on investment, is included. Thank you, Dr. Raju, for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishal. That was an excellent presentation. You rightly brought out that you may have the best camera in the market, paying the large amount of money for that. But if you don't understand the settings and if you don't understand the optics, you will not be able to get great quality images. So you recorded in the best HD recording system, but still you had to work around with a lot of settings to avoid the reflection, get the right image using the right illumination. That is the most crucial part that everyone of us have to understand when we are recording surgeries. It's not that there's a lot of hard work that Vishal puts in his videos to get award-winning videos. It's not just like plug and play. That's what the message I would like to give to others.
And the most important part is that the person on the floor has to be trained also, because
Correct.
you cannot be always available to do the settings.
Correct. So you should train your assistant to see how the image quality is, and you can make adjustments immediately. Before you go, Vishal, I just wanted to ask you: have you operated on the 3D surgical systems either from Alcon or from Zeiss?
So I have done. We had a demo of Ingenuity last year before the lockdown.
Okay. Okay. So what's been your experience when you compare like working on a system using the TV or watching that on the TV and operating versus seeing on the in the ocular and operating? What
So I
was
operated around 10 to 11 cases, and there was a learning curve. But I
okay?
was very comfortable in the macular surgeries. But where I was putting a band or was doing indentation, I had a problem. I was not very comfortable. But then again, that could have been circumvented if I had done more cases on that.
So going forward, do you think that the 3D surgical systems are the way forward? What do you think in future that would you be buying one of them?
Yeah, if I had enough funds, I would go for it. But they are insanely expensive right now. And the main point is the whole OT has to be dedicated for that. So you cannot remove that camera part and put on the oculars. You can damage in that process. So you have to have a spare OT with the ocular. So you need 2 OTs for that. That will be just reserved for the 3D system only.
Okay, right. Thank you, Vishal. I think you made your point. As far as the Alcon system is concerned, it doesn't allow you to use the ocular simultaneously. But we have with us today Mahesh, who will be RTO 800. We have with us Dr. Mahesh, who is an retina consultant at Netradama Super Specialty Eye Hospital in Bangalore, and he will be sharing with us his experience of using RTO 800, the Zeiss 3D system. Over to you, Mahesh.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, right? yes. Go ahead. Go for the screen share. Right. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So I'm Dr. Mahesh. I'm working in Netradama Super Specialty Eye Hospital as a vitreoretinal surgeon, and I'm using I'm here to share my experience with RTO 800, which I've been using from quite a while right now. So RTO, as we all know, is a 3D the digital microscope with integrated OCT settings over here. The RTO 800 comes with mainly 3 significant features of digital. Just a second. Digital like ad vision and as well as cloud connectivity. So the digital optics essentially mean that it features 2 3-chip 4K camera which is integrated inside the microscope, which produces a gigantic 3D image over the 55-inch 4K TV with the viewing glasses with the passive the Polaroid glasses, and it is supposed to give you 25% higher resolution and outstanding depth of field as well as light transmission. So I've been working on this for about a while right now. So I will show like the ad vision basically shows the integration of the real-time data into the surgeon's view. Mainly for us as retinal surgeons, we use OCT as a integrated source to guide our surgery, and as well as it can integrate sources for cataract, glaucoma, as well as cornea surgeries. And it also has a seamless cloud connectivity, which can integrate with Zeiss Forum IOL Master to get all the data all ahead, so as to connect with the system and the patient data to be integrated right into the surgical video. So one of the important features of this is auto adjust in terms of when you want to change from anterior segment to posterior segment. When as soon as you use the reside, it immediately changes the settings into the posterior segment. So the time consumed in terms of changing your surgical part for the posterior is very much minimized. And one of the best feature for about in this particular feature is using ocular with and without. So you can choose to keep the ocular there and work with it, or if you if you do not want to use it, you can just keep the ocular away and use it. So I generally use both these for with or without ocular. There are certain part where I'm not so very comfortable in a 3D setup, so I just shift to the ocular and as and when needed. So in my experience, shifting from analog to digital was quite seamless. So when it comes to surgical, in terms of learning curve, shifting to the surgical part was pretty much easier. The lag, which has been known to happen over here, is pretty less in terms of latency. So there is not much of it. It is very indiscernible when you are operating upon, and especially in the veterinary surgery. But as far as I have spoken to my phaco people, they say that they might have some amount of lag. And digital display is pretty good. The 4K display with a very high magnification and high resolution and a very good depth of field. It is very unparalleled when it comes to the weaving part of it. And the digital overlays are pretty much accurate and clear, and it doesn't affect your field of vision while you're operating. And the Polaroid glasses that we use over here are passive ones, which are not, we don't create that much of a darkness while you're operating, and the illumination is quite bright toward your surgery, and it is pretty seamless. Ergonomics wise, yeah, it has been known that up to 70% of the retinal surgeons tend to have their head, neck and back pain over the long career, but this will help you definitely sit in a ergonomic posture of physiological posture, so that you can swim around, move on, and you can carry on your surgery for longer duration without having much of a strain on your back and the neck. So I want to share some of the videos of it. This is a case where there was a VMD with the patient having very metamorphosis as a major issue, and was very keen on getting a surgery done. So I went ahead with the Artivo for its assistance, because there was a subretinal fluid along with a tag associated with it. This is after the PVD induction, where I isolated the central part of it. So once you connect the OCT and turn the tracker on, it tries to keep the tracking on the central part of the OCT while you are moving. You can keep on operating upon and not worrying much about the OCT calibration as such. So you can actually see I generally tend to take the ILM all to the center, and in this particular place where I didn't want to peel it out, which might cause an inadvertent macula hole, so I expected to trim over that particular part. So you can see that it guides you well throughout the surgery. So the macula part of the surgery in Artivo 800 was fairly good, but in terms of peripheral visual, initially I had a bit of a tough issue facing it, a little bit of problem with the visual visibility, but over the time you can go ahead and take the peripheral part well as well, and you can actually take the OCT in under air also, while by moving your X and Y axis to such an extent so that you can clearly capture the motor part of it. The major learning curve is for the capture of OCT rather than the surgery part itself. Another video which shows retinal detachment, it can be easily captured by your OCT if you are in gotten awareness of whether there is a macular detachment or not. And the best use of Artivo 800 was found until now in my experience is where you have ERM. So ERM, it actually shows the live appearance of the ERM right there, and it can actually show the peeling being done on a live basis. Whenever there is ILM peeler comes in the center of it, it can cause shadowing, but as you go on, it can actually go. I just try to slow down the video so we can actually see the ERM being peeled over the retina, and it can be captured as well. So the best part of the ERM peel is once you are done, you can actually move on all your OCT all throughout the macula to see if there is any remnant which is left, which can be a cause of recurrences. So this has been really good help in terms of ERM take care of. So these are the major advantages are the things which I have spoken about. The major disadvantages, what I felt was the cost factor, which is super high in terms of what it offers to us. The operating group logistics, it's a huge machine which consumes the most of the space of your operating room, and especially in terms of a cataract surgeon who tends to take the places over here, and many assisting around can be a bit of a problematic thing. But still, because the TV can be moved around with the wheels around, it can still be managed. And just got it. Hello, just cannot move the slide. Okay, that's the part of it. The major advantage of this would be where we can involve most of the your surgical team as well as students who all at once with wearing that 3D glasses goggles to involve in the teaching experience. So that's the best part of the major use which I found in terms of and with the help of cloud connectivity, with it can be used for displaying it to wider range of audiences in terms of pandemic where the gathering is not possible. So which can be a very useful stuff. So I think somehow I stuck with the thing. That's about it.
The hall in charges, please note that sometimes this is happening. Even it happened in other halls. If you stop the video sharing option by the host, so if anything can be done, kindly fix that, please. The hall in charge.
That's one slide to share, and I think.
Okay. You share. Try to share now again.
Okay, sir. There's only one slide which I wanted to share.
Okay.
It's not showing right now.
Okay. Let's move on. Thanks, Mahesh. That was a very good talk on your experience of using the RTO system. The interesting part I found was that using the OCT under air. Have you tried it in patients with retinal detachment when you've done the fluid air exchange and to confirm?
Yes, sir. While going on, it's fine. It's difficult, but once the retina is settled, and we can actually take the pictures of OCT where the retina is settled. Under air also it can be taken.
Okay. And other thing I wanted to know was how much time did you take to get used to this system and operate confidently? First the macular surgeries, and second is the peripheral vitrectomies or diabetic vitrectomies.
Yeah. So to get to the surgical part of it, with the video on, with such a high magnification and resolution, it was very easy to shift to it. Macular part is the easiest part. Initially, when I had to do the peripheral part, I found it a little difficult in terms of illumination part. Later down the course, maybe after about 4 or 5 surgeries later, I was confident about the surgical part of the peripheral part of the also. But now, because there is a hybrid option, I can shift over to ocular part whenever I feel that there is some bit of a problem. But the learning curve where I had to invest more time was on OCT capturing. So that's a little bit of a tough task to get to get it onto the right spot and the capture with the X, Y, and the Z axis in coordination. Apart from that, it's quite okay. It took about a bit of a time, but now I'm pretty comfortable too.
And as you said that visualizing the periphery was difficult, it's more to do with the lighting part of it. Can you adjust the camera settings in this system?
I am not much aware of it as of now, but
okay.
The lighting was like it becomes dim at certain places, and when there was a bloom, it's too affecting your eyes to get the.
So basically, now what we should understand is our eyes have got a very high dynamic range, and our eyes can adjust to bright light and the dim light, and we'll still be able to see clearly. However, the cameras are not like that. So they are not so efficient as our eyes are. That's the take-home message. So we need to fiddle with the settings, and so we need to go into the depth of each system to harness its full potential. John, you have a point to make?
Yes, sir. So when you are using the hybrid system and switching between the 3D view and the oculars, did you have a difficulty adjusting to the lag?
No, there is not. No, there's not
No
many,
lag
not much of
now.
lag at all.
Oh,
So there is
perfect.
actually a button which helps you shift to 3D and this thing. Like there's, I keep Ocular on all the time, but when I have to do 3D, I just have to switch on to the turnover which shift me to the 3D directly. And whenever,
Okay.
but there
So
is
you
no
have to
lag.
remove the 3D glasses, sir.
See, you can use that also. Like
Okay.
while
It
Ocular,
reduces intensity.
once I keep the glasses on, I generally don't remove it, because while seeing through the Ocular also, it won't cut your light down. And
Okay. Okay. And are there any special filters like an ILM highlighting filter?
yes, there is.
Oh, super.
I have
Super.
used it, but I couldn't get that video part. So
Okay. That's excellent, sir. Nice to know.
even without the dye, you can actually do your island peel with that highlighters. Yeah.
Okay. And just one quick question. What is the cost of this system?
Huge. As far as I know,
Yes.
3.5 crores.
Actually, that is the most difficult part to adjust to, I think, apart
Correct.
from lighting. Lighting.
So you can adjust everything, but shelling out 3.5 crores for this system, actually, it's a big heartburn. And we have now with us for the next talk, Dr. Sumit Kanduja, and he is going to show us whether we can try to build our own 3D recording system, if not for operations, for doing the operations on live view, but at least we can build a system to record and teach our students. And Sumit requires no introduction. He was one of the first to use mirrorless cameras for surgical recording. He was the one who got me interested into it, and we together have done a lot of work on that, and which has been published in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology. And Dr. Sumit is coming up with his next innovation, that is innovative 3D recording solutions. Over to you, Sumit. Sumit is a faculty at Kalpana Chawla Government Medical College at Karnal.
Good evening, sir. Sir, is my slide visible, sir?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. So I've got no financial disclosures. So basically, it's a well-known fact. It's established that not just in ophthalmology, in all subspecialties, 3D imaging and teaching is coming in a big way. It has been evaluated, it has been published that three-dimensional teaching offers better, it's a better modality than two-dimensional, even in general surgery, for learning laparoscopic surgery, even in vitreoretinal surgery, and our subject is not an exception. And there are, as Mahesh has told us, there are well-established systems for recording in 3D. So just before moving ahead, I will like the audience to brush up with what are the 3D visualizing principles that are being used in the industry as well as in medicine. So the first is polarized glasses, what Mahesh was using on the Artivo system. It basically, there are two images which are coming from the screen, the right and the left, and they are usually, in one the light is vertically polarized, in one it is horizontally. Also they used cyclical and anti-cyclical polarization. So basically the images which are coming to the two eyes are dissimilar, they are fused by the brain and they're converted into one 3D image. So this is one system. The second is of the using of the colored glasses. We know of the red green glasses. So in one eye you've got the red glass, the image that comes, it cuts off the second image which comes from the blue glass, and then this gets fused, and I think Dr. Raju will also be showing some of his videos on that, and this becomes the three-dimensional image. The third modality that you use is for these video games and 3D video game people use. They are the active glasses. So basically they have got some LCD crystals in these goggles, and the image from the screen, it flips between the right and the left, and at the same time the charge in these liquid crystals, it gets changes. So at any point of time you have got image only from one eye which is entering, you are able to see, and because of this rapid alternate visualization, you get a three-dimensional effect. Now coming to the fourth, that is stereo photograph. So this is probably one of the first ways that actually people started seeing lesions in 3D, and it is also the mode which is being maximally revived now. So stereo photograph, as you all know, it consists of two photographs placed side to side to each other, and these images are slightly dissimilar. They are viewed and they give a three-dimensional effect. So this is for those of you who are pursuing retina. This is one of the most iconic books which helped us understand the macular diseases in 3 dimension. So how do you view them? Just to tell you, you have there were the stereo viewers before. So from the right eye you could see only the right eye, the one image, and from the other eye you could see the image which was slightly dissimilar, and that is how you could get. Now the modern stereo viewers are called the VR boxes. They are VR goggles which have a smartphone that can be fit inside it. It basically has a convex lens, so as to cut off the accommodation, and also cut off the accommodative convergence. So it basically kind of dissociates accommodation and convergence, and that is how you're able to get the 3D effect. And most of my efforts to get a 3D recording have evolved on these bases. So also now you see a lot of these things in the malls. These are 3D animated videos. You have 3D roller coaster. This is the 3D roller coaster, right? So just again to give example, that these are images which are taken in 2:1 proportion. That is the length is twice the height of the image, and this is basically almost square images. So again the right left dissociation is done and you get a 3D effect. Now when you search, if you search the YouTube, you will find a lot of 3D retina and cataract surgeries. This is just a clip of the YouTube, a screenshot of 3D surgery which has been done by Dr. Manish Nagpal, and one which is done by Dr. Rishi Swaroop. So if you again put your phone, for example an iPhone, in the VR box, you will be able to see a beautiful 3D video. So going ahead with the same work, I had that how should I proceed it. I did not have that much infrastructure as Dr. Mahesh to afford a 3.5 crore system. Probably my house also doesn't cost that much. So just to get the concept clear, if you understand that in the microscope you have this thing, your image port, sorry, your viewing port, there will be a lens which will take your view from the right to your right eye, the right ocular, and also the same beam will be split to take it to the right side of the beam splitter, and similar thing exists on the left side. So the first thing I did was that, okay, let us try to, we got a contraption made in which we could attach two cameras, one which was receiving light rays that were meant for the right eye, and the other which was receiving rays from the beam splitter which were meant for the left eye. So I could, the first thing was that, okay, now I have got two cameras, and I can have two images. Now how to go ahead about it, how to record these videos. The second step was that we have to I had to make sure that, so whatever I'm telling is kind of my own journey or my own struggle into how I got into this, how I developed it. So the other, now second thing was that how could we we had to make sure that the two cameras were aligned properly. That was done basically by the manufacturer. He made sure that the images were absolutely aligned. Then we had to make sure that when you were editing these videos or kind of making the final product, the right sided video was placed to the right and to the left and not flip flop. And then they had to be fused in a way that the projections to the particular eye were precise. There was no overlap, else it would have caused diplopia and not stereopsis. And the fourth was that the two videos should have to be recorded or relayed simultaneously. Now how would you have done that? So one idea was that you switch on the two videos
ಇನ್ನೂ
simultaneously.
ಮುಗಿದಿಲ್ಲ ಮಾತುಕತೆ, ಇವರು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆಂದು ಶುರುವಾದ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇದಾರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಒಂದೂವರೆ ತಾಸು.
Raju sir, I can't understand what they're saying, but can you ask them to please mute? So anyway, going ahead, so the idea was that can you play the two videos together? Now there are Just a minute, sir. Okay. So now you have cameras. There is a camera from Sony, for example. They can do, multi-system shoots. The recordings from these two cameras, they get synchronized. But then it again, one camera will cost not less than 3.5 lakhs. So this is what something that you will, see in a movie theater or in, film shoots, that multiple cameras, they are aligned to record simultaneously. Now this option also went out. So the thing was that, okay, you can record the two videos, but then you will have to spend a lot of time actually, putting them side to side and making sure that there is, they are in the same time frame. So that was getting very difficult. So what I thought was that, okay, what we can do. So this is what struck me, that you see all these interviews going on daily. So you have got, one camera which is focused upon the person who's taking the interview, and the second who's getting grilled, and they also get, this kind of a image. So the two camera images, they are fused in a 2:1 ratio, and this could have. So when I forayed into how it is done, they said there are expensive, the video mixers which are used in studios. But again, that was, quite something which was not possible. So as Lady Luck smiled, I went to a wedding and I saw there was a person who had a wedding mixer. That one of the, the on the TV screen, once they relayed a drone shot of the bride, one of the groom. So that is what was actually, that helped me. And then I finally somehow managed to, convince that guy and ask him. So I bought a 4:1. These are called as multi viewers or HDMI mixers. So what it has is, basically it can have up to 4 HDMI inputs. So I essentially need 2 inputs and 1 output. So these are the 4 inputs, and these mixers were the ones which could actually place the 2 images side by side and give me an output. So I have recorded, this is a video. This is, one of the sample videos that I have recorded, and it looks precisely the same as you see the videos on YouTube. And unfortunately, this is a conference where we have to present in 2D. But if anyone of you wishes to take this video from me, I'm sure if you put it in a VR box or if you view it with the +5 glass, it has a beautiful stereopsis effect. Till now, to whom we have shared, they have, everyone has been able to appreciate stereopsis. So this is how the contraption could be built. So to summarize, I believe that this is just a start of the innovative, affordable solutions, and I would be happy if there are young minds who can, come into this and make a consortia which can move for an indigenous 3D medical technology. Thank you, sir, everyone, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit, for that wonderful demonstration of your journey of building a 3D recording system. I think definitely this is one thing that we all can work and take it forward and build our own systems, at least for teaching purposes to begin with. And definitely the concept is going to remain same, whether you use the 3.5 crore system or 1 crore system. It is the right left images that you have to get it right, and if you get it right and if you are able to fuse them, you will get 3D. So that is the concept that is very clear for all of us. Thank you again, Sumit. Any questions are there for Sumit?
Okay. Sir, I would like to congratulate you. I would like to congratulate you on developing this, sir. And like you rightly said, it is very important to have 3D in ophthalmology teaching. We have all 2D textbooks, and we see everything from slit lamp to retina in 2D. But what we don't realize is 3D is what we want in ophthalmology. And I hope low-cost systems like this help make that a reality in teaching, at least, sir.
Correct. So on that note, I would also like to share that I have been working on a 3D adapter for this, and we have been successful in getting an adapter wherein we are able to generate the 3D using a single camera. So that is the thing that we have been working on. I got a prototype of it, but unfortunately, because of the COVID, a lot of things have gone behind. And very soon, I and Sumit will get you out with the new product. With that, I think again we have John with us, again an innovator par excellence. He's all over the place, I can say, in this conference, and has won a lot of awards. It's a pleasure to have you, John. And it's always a pleasure to see your innovations and the new way out of the box thinking that you bring to us. Let us see what you have today for us. Using mobile phones for 3D. Not only you can use to see the 3D, but you can also record 3D. That's what John is going to let us know today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you, Raju sir, for organizing this instruction course and for inviting me for the 3D part of it. I was always interested in 3D from childhood. I would always, look at the 3D pictures, the stereograms, which used to come in the Young World long back. That is the supplement for the Hindu newspaper. And I was fascinated by that. And that is how I learned to do parallel view and cross-eye view and all that. So I would just start the presentation without much further ado. So financial interest, not really, but I have made a free bunch of apps. One of them is the 3D Atlas of Ophthalmology, which is available for free on the Android Google Play Store. If anybody wants, you can just search 3D Atlas of Ophthalmology. And of course, 3D is essential. Binocularity is essential in ophthalmology, starting from slit lamp biomicroscopy of cornea, anterior chamber, fundus examination with 90 diopter lens, 70 diopter, indirect ophthalmoscopy, and of course, as with what we have been seeing, eye surgery. I'm going to concentrate more on the clinical part and less on the surgery. Why smartphone? Because I love smartphones. Most of my innovations are in smartphones. And because the best camera is the one that is always with you, it is always accessible, it is portable, you can quickly do editing, sharing, and it is affordable. So you don't have to think about a 4K medical grade camera. You can just get a 4K smartphone camera, which is probably, I think, 15 to 20,000. That is not much. So 3D Atlas of Ophthalmology, let me just quickly go over it. I have made it such that we have stereo side-by-side, SBS, that is stereo side-by-side views. Here, if you do a parallel live view, you can do it, or you can put it into a virtual reality box, VR headset box, and this will show up as 3D. It is quite difficult to do the parallel view if you're doing it for the first time. So if you put in a VR box, everybody can see it. So this is some of the sample images, and these are taken by my phone, my smartphone, which was, I think this was a OnePlus 3T, which is several generations old. So this is not even a new generation smartphone. It's a mid-end smartphone of several years back. These are some fundus photographs, which are not by me, but I have combined into the red-blue glasses mode. So for viewing this, you will need the red-blue anaglyph glasses, which are also available, which are quite cheap. I think it's around 200 rupees for a pair of glasses. These are retina photographs, which are from the Ophthalmic Photographer Society, which have been combined into a red-blue anaglyph. So this is a 3D Atlas of Ophthalmology. So coming to how I made these things. So you just need these things to view it. This is the red-blue anaglyph glasses and the Google Cardboard box. You just need, you can use several options. So one option which I tried, in fact, was I got a 3D camera from China. This was quite some time back before we had a big problem. So I was able to get a 3D camera and I was able to record external videos in 3D. I'll come to that. With a single smartphone and an app, I was able to take not simultaneous, like consecutive photographs and combine them into 3D, which can be viewed in several ways. If you have a side-by-side format, you can convert it into anything you want. And another one is to use two smartphones simultaneously with a software. One of them is Camerada, and that allows you to combine the video from the two smartphones into a 3D view. This is from the VR camera which I use. This is just a gross view of Arvind Eye Hospital Eye Camp during my fellowship there. So basically, just want to show you the left and right side by side view from the single camera. So there's two cameras, but the output for this camera is this. So when you record from this into the smartphone, you get this output. You don't have to worry about alignment or anything because it is taken care in the hardware itself. Then, of course, the single smartphone only for photographs. And then this is a splitter. So Dr. Raju, I think this is probably one of the principles you have used. It's a splitter which splits the camera view into two, and each side of the beam splitter can take this. So this is what we can do for surgeries. For surgeries, you can have two separate smartphones. This was published in 2016 by Gallagher et al. And they used two smartphones and recorded the surgeries in both separately and combined them into a single video and used it in a VR box. VR box, you can also use it in a 3D TV if you have one. This particular one is commercially available now. This is 2019, I believe, and this fits into an eyepiece of a microscope, and it is available commercially. So if you record the video in this can be transmitted to a 3D TV, and if the 3D TV has the option to get a side-by-side A/B video, it can convert into 3D. Unfortunately, 3D TVs are not commercially available much now. And as Sir pointed out, there are several 3D eye surgery videos in iTube, and some of them, I mean, all of them can be seen in Anaglyph or SBS side-by-side VR headset view. And also there are not only in iTube, it's also there in YouTube. Several videos by several great surgeons on YouTube. So once again, please download the app, get 3D glasses and the VR headset so that you can help in ophthalmic education in 3D. So take home point, this is 3D photographs, the red, blue Anaglyph. These are very low cost systems and it is easily available. Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge my institutions where I have studied: JIPMER, Arvind Eye Hospital, Pondicherry, Shankar Nethralaya, Little Flower Hospital, Ramchandra Medical College, and Western Eye Hospital, which is my father's. Thank you.
Thanks, John. This is my 3D. I don't know whether you'll be able to see. I have a very similar camera as what you have.
Awesome.
3D one. So we all have been working, I think. So all innovators are on the same mode, and we have been working to explore the various options. What I wanted to ask you was the images that you have shot. Were they shot simultaneously using two cameras, or you used a single camera to do it again?
So the images for the 3D Atlas of Ophthalmology, those still images I shot with a single camera.
Okay.
So I do a lot of smartphone photography with just the hand. I don't use an adapter. So in a busy OPD, there is no time to do all that. So I just quickly, without an adapter, quickly take a photo, and I combine it together. It becomes 3D.
So you're using the eyepieces of the slit lamp?
Yes, sir.
The eyepiece of the slit lamp.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, but only thing is the alignment and the adjustment to have the right image for the brain to fuse.
Yes, sir.
That is a challenge, and that will be solved by that adapter that you showed in the video.
Yes,
sir.
Because patient moves.
Yeah, patient moves. Yeah. Now, only problem with any adapter is the synchronized start of the recording and synchronized framing. So that actually is a difficult part when we are doing all these jugards, what you can call as jugards. So it's not easy, because if you want to have a great quality 3D visualization, there should not be much difference between the frames. So you should be able to fuse correctly. The right frame should be there side by side. Then only you will be able to get the great quality image.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. Thank you for being with us. It was indeed a pleasure to have you with us. With that, I'll be starting my talk. As John said, the 3D Viewing the 3D on TV is an option, but unfortunately, the 3D TVs are not in vogue nowadays. So, what are the options to see the 3D? Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, visible, sir.
Yeah. So, what are the options that we have? Some of the options have already been discussed. Let me show you what are the newer options that may be coming up in future. So the basic concepts, we all by this time know that the 3D display forms the image from only two images, the right and the left, regardless of whichever format that you're shot in. And the traditional 3D screens always display the same image angle regardless of the viewer's position. So if the viewer changes the position, he'll still see the same angle of the image. As far as the formats are concerned, you have the side-by-side format, which is easy to shoot. That's what we are using on the mobile phones to view. Other formats which are used are the top and bottom and alternate projection and anaglyph. So these are the various formats that are used, while the alternate projection uses the active 3D. So this is how a over and under 3D would look like. So you have two frames. The left frame is placed over the right, and the 3D TV or a system that can render the 3D content will be able to understand this format and then convert into a 3D image. This is the side-by-side format. This is what Dr. Sumit had recorded. So here you have the left video and the right video, and they are mixed together to give you the right and the left image. So again, when you give this input to any 3D TV, it will recognize as a 3D content and it will immediately convert into a 3D video. The other one is the alternate frame packing, wherein one frame will be of the left eye, other frame will be of the right eye. These are sent in sequences repeatedly and at a very high rate. So when you are using an active 3D glass, whenever the left image is projected, your left shutter will be open and the right shutter will be closed. So this will be alternating between the right and the left, and this will give you a very good quality image. This is because the whole image is projected at one point of time. So the quality in active 3D glasses would be better than in a passive 3D systems. There are other methods also used wherein there is a line by line format and a checkerboard pattern. When it comes to options of viewing the 3D content, so you can have screen based or near eye displays. So when it comes to screen based, you can have the 3D TV, you can have a 3D projector onto a screen or a 3D LED wall. 3D projector and LED walls are suitable only for large audiences and will not be able to use it on a regular basis. As far as the regular TV or computer monitor, we can use it to watch the 3D content using the anaglyph format. Unfortunately, the 3D TVs are out of use. They are no longer produced, except for some original equipment manufacturers like Alcon and Zeiss have tied up with some of the big manufacturers, and they are only the people who will be able to get these systems. Now Sony is ready to give these monitors, but they are available at a very high price. They cost somewhere around 26 to 30 lakhs. These are passive systems, and we will be using the circular polarizing filter in our glasses, 3D passive glasses, and we'll be using that to view the 3D content. When it comes to near eye display, the most accessible one is the mobile phone based. You have the Google Cardboard and the VR headsets which can be used, and you also have the standalone virtual reality headsets and also the augmented reality headsets. Google Cardboard is the one that got us all interested. Here, this is how a system would look like with the glasses, 5 diopter glasses, and all you require is this cardboard and your mobile phone, and you will be able to start your experience of seeing videos in 3D or experience VR. You also get these VR boxes. These are not very costly, cost somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000, sometimes even lesser than that. Good quality ones cost you somewhere around 1,500. Here you have to just put your mobile phone into the into the VR box, and you will be ready to use the system. How should you go about? You can download any VR app that is available on the Play Store. Then open the headset, put your mobile phone into it, and start the VR app. Then you will be able to get the right left imaging, and close the headset, and they are ready to go. It's as simple as that. You have the IPD adjustment there, so you need to do that adjustment to get the right setting for your eyes. And also a focus button is there on the sides that will help you to see a crisp image. So when you start a video, it will look like this. There's this icon which shows you VR mode. When you click on that, so you will be able to get the side-by-side image like this. And once you are able to see these two images, they're ready to go, and you can experience virtual reality or 3D. So some of the things of these VR headboxes are very easily available on the Amazon. You can just go and order one for yourself. Coming to the headsets which are dedicated for use are the Oculus headsets. This is the Oculus Go, which is a standalone VR headset. These can be connected either to your laptop, or some of them are standalone. You can connect directly to the internet, and then you can start viewing videos on this headset. Newer ones are also coming, which are more sleek and more comfortable. These are the various headsets which have been introduced in the market, or they may come very soon in the future. The only limitation of that is when you're using a VR headset, you are cut off from the surroundings. And because of that, we may feel disoriented. However, it gives you a very nice experience of seeing the videos in 3D. Microsoft HoloLens is one thing that is a augmented reality headset. So this actually doesn't cut you off from the surrounding. So you have near eye displays, and near eye displays you will be able to see the right and left image onto your eye, and to visualize the 3D content. So other one is the Magic Leap, and the Epson also has products, but all of them are going through various phases of development, and hopefully in future we'll be getting good ones. It's rumored that Apple will be coming up with their VR headset also. So once Apple comes into the picture, definitely all of us are going to get interested into using these systems for viewing 3D content. This is one more called as the Avegant Glyph. I had my hands on to this. I have tried this, and I have done what is called as an indirect ophthalmoscopy using this as a near eye display, and we are able to get the images like this. So we also applied for a patent for that. And this is the other one which I also tried here. This is the one that I got, which is the near eye display for viewing 3D content. So I've been working on this, and these are the systems that definitely have a place, and in future we'll be able to get better quality near eye displays. Now, if you don't have any of this, how can we still watch a 3D movie? So all you require is a regular TV, a red-green glass, and your VLC player. So this is what Sumit showed us today, that side-by-side video that he has shot. So any side-by-side video, you can go, open it in the VLC player, and once you open it in the VLC player, go to the tools, effects and filters, and there you have to go to advanced setting and use the Anaglyph 3D. You select that. Once you select that, the two images will be fused, and it will be giving you in the red-green format. but this is how it will look like. So there is some elongation of the image here when you're just finished with this. So to fix this, you have to go to the zoom there, make it as 1:1 original, then go to the aspect ratio as 1:1, and then go to the crop ratio as 16:9. Once you do that, you'll be able to get a good quality 3D image which is seen in full screen, and this can be seen on any TV that you want. You can just connect your laptop through a HDMI cable to your TV, and using a red green glasses you'll be able to see 3D content on your TV immediately. So it will not cost you anything more than 1,000 rupees for your glasses as well as a HDMI cable. So you can do that. The future looks very exciting with Apple getting into the frame. Sony has also come out with a glasses-free spatial reality display with eye tracking. This is a small monitor wherein if you sit in front of it, if you turn your head, you will be able to see as though the image is there in front of you in a 3D format. So the future looks very exciting. The camera technology is going to make rapid strides. 5G technology is going to allow rapid data transmission. It is said that mobile phones may slowly make a way out, and we may have a near eye display that we will be wearing all the time, and all the notifications, the whatever videos that we want to see will be there directly in front of our eyes. And this is where the technology is set to go, but we do not know whether it will go there. So the future looks exciting. Let's look forward to it. Thank you very much. Any questions are there? I would like to take them before we go on to the last talk.
I think excellent presentation, sir. One question I had with you use the Avegant Glyph and another, I think these are the projection devices that you use.
Correct.
With the indirect, how did you connect it?
No. Basically, I have not connected my indirect to it. What we had done is it's a proof of concept that I did, wherein the camera was directly connected to the Avegant Glyph.
Which camera?
I had got a camera for where they use for surgical recording. For spine surgery and other surgeries,
Okay.
which has got a headlight also. So
Okay.
that we connected it directly to the camera. So I'm not using any indirect ophthalmoscope or the optics of the indirect ophthalmoscope at all. So the light and the camera, and I just put my 20D, and that is displayed onto my near eye display. So we were able to get the 3D. So we applied for a patent for that design now. So that is a work in progress, and COVID has put us behind by 2 years.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody? John, do you have any questions or comments to make?
As excellent as always, sir. I'm very, very happy that you are working and getting it forward and waiting for your commercial products, sir.
Thank you. So with that, we'll be going to the last talk of this session. And we have with us Dr. Saurabh Patwardhan, who was with me at AIIMS. I'm very proud of him. I was his teacher, but I would say now he's a teacher for all of us. He runs a very successful FACO training online program that is called as the FACO Shala. And he was one of the first to do teaching in 3D. So let us hear from him what was his experience of using 3D videos for surgical teaching. Over to you, Saurabh.
Thank you so much, sir, for that kind introduction. I can hear a echo. Okay. So yes, so I was trying out, just like John and Dr. Raju sir, these 3D devices and ways to record and also stream them live 3D. And also simultaneously, if other assistants or my trainees can see them live. That was what I tried, and I was successful. So before COVID happened, actually I conducted first 3D workshop. So it was not like a conference, but it was more on teaching. So we actually showed each and every step live, and so that everyone can watch along with the surgeon, and we could discuss each and every step. Unfortunately, the COVID happened and I could not do another workshop, but definitely next time I would like to welcome you all to watch that workshop. It's excellent. So I'll be speaking about the role of 3D in surgical training. Now, surgical training includes a lot of different aspects. As you know, those who are involved in training, it requires a lot of hands-on training. There are a lot of advices which have to be given. But I think if it happens along with a 3D technology, it makes it very easy. Teaching is nothing but transferring the knowledge from the teacher who may have more experiences. At the same time, he is experiencing the surgeries through his microscope, that is eyepieces. Everything is in 3 dimension. And when you want to convey that to your student, you can convey the concepts, the basics, the theory, all these things without using 3D devices. But when it comes to imagination, because the trainee has to imagine the depth, then it is a little bit difficult, and then the trainee requires more time. So when the trainee is operating, for example, he is seeing everything in 3 dimension, while most of the times the trainer is seeing it on the screen. If the teaching this thing is available, he is seeing it 3D as well. But most times we are looking at the screen and whatever we are seeing is 2D. And many times we miss few mistakes done by the trainees. But if the trainer also can see whatever the trainee is doing in 3 dimension, that gives a very good input, and the trainer actually can tell a lot of things to the trainee what actually he is doing wrong. So I will just skip all these steps. These are these 4 steps of training that each of us undergo, starting from the unconscious incompetence. Many times when we start off, doing surgery, before that, we don't know what we are actually going to, see. So when we have 3D surgical videos, actually the trainee gets used to the surgical view. And when he starts doing the surgeries himself, he understands what he was missing as compared to experts 3D surgeries. And also when he does the surgeries and we record them or we see them live in 3 dimension, what we do is that we can do the surgical video analysis also in 3D with the depth involved. And that helps a lot in, teaching to your trainees. Ultimately, the training is nothing but training of your mind. So for training your mind, more the information given to the brain in the form of 3-dimensional view, better it is. I will skip all these slides just pertaining to the ways we train. This is how I have structured entire program. So let me just go through a few of the steps. So what I have done for my trainees is that before the trainee starts the surgery, first surgery itself, apart from the wet lab, which he has to train him, we have to train him. What I show him there are around 13, 14 edited 3D surgical videos or 3D edited all the steps, and where I want to focus them on particular points of the steps. For example, while making the incision, I think one of the most important point is that the blade should be parallel to the iris. Now, how will you teach this to your trainee without having the 3rd dimension? When you show the trainee the 3rd dimension using the 3D TV, it's very easy for him to understand. Also, the lifting of the heel of the blade, how it is going through the cornea stroma, everything can be showed very easily. Same way, while doing CCC, many times what I see is that when trainee is doing the capsulorhexis, with 3D, we can judge the anterior chamber shallowness very quickly as compared to 2D. Plane of hydrodissection, again, the movement of the nucleus, whether there is deepening of the anterior chamber or shallowing, can be easily seen on this 3D viewing. Now, as far as nucleus management is concerned, I think nucleus is a 3-dimensional structure. That's what I tell my students, that it's a 3-dimensional structure. So you have to imagine it in that way. Once you can get your imagination going, I think it's very easy to crack it. For example, for trench divide, you just need to know the right depth of the trench and you will be able to do it very easily. And what I have seen last, I think 1.5 years, I'm using this technology for teaching. I've seen that the learning curve has definitely shortened. For example, my first fellow who joined after I started teaching in this 3D, I think she could master the phaco, all the basic steps within say 10 to 12 surgeries itself. So that speaks of lot of 3D surgical videos, also the live surgery she has seen. So same way in all other steps. So how 3D really helps in my I would say teaching practice. These are the things. So first thing is that because when I operate, all the surgeries are seen live by the trainees in 3D, and they're also recorded so the trainee can see them again on 3D TV. Also, we try to watch all trainee surgeries in 3D live as well as recorded. I also live stream these 3D surgeries, just like as John has shown, and many other surgeons have also recorded. I live stream these surgeries 3D. So anyone who has access to VR glasses or maybe projectors or 3D screens, they can watch this live. Once the surgeries are done, many times I discuss the 3D surgical videos with my trainees, so they know the nuances why I did for some steps differently, how the posterior capsule was, where the fluctuation in the anterior chamber, how I dealt, because the 3D adds a lot of even the literally speaking depth to the discussions. And after that also I have done a lot of edited training videos in 3D, which are very useful. I've done it for cataract. There are a few I have made for retina as well. And this definitely, as I said, reduces the learning curve. Now, all these things already been told by Dr. Raju, so I don't have to repeat. And I think 3D projectors, as Dr. Raju has already tried, is the way to go. And I think 3D TVs might be making comeback soon. I also on my channel, I have a lot of 3D VR headset surgical videos, which can be seen by the trainees. And also soon I will be uploading many edited 3D videos for training purpose. So that's all from my side. And I think for all the beginners, I think 3D teaching or 3D learning is the way to go. And it will make definitely your learning curve or training curve a lot shorter. That has been my experience.
Thank you, Saurabh, for sharing your experience with us. Now 2 or 3 quick questions. One is that are you using a 3D TV for your trainees to see, or have you got hold of one 3D TV?
Yeah, actually, I have got almost 7-8 3D TVs now. I am a collector, so I search for all the second-hand markets, and I keep on collecting a lot of 3D TVs, because initially my plan was to do this live workshop with many 3D TVs around, so people. But what I found out is that we have these cinema projectors which are still in the commerce, because 3D movies are quite popular. So I don't think they are going to go out of vogue soon. These cinematic projectors are amazing. Okay, so they work on the passive technology. As you can see, you use the passive glasses, and the depth they give is amazing. So I did this workshop with these cinematic projectors, and believe me, it was even grander than what we actually see through surgical microscope. And maybe I think Mahesh have used RTO. So just imagine the RTO with that 70 mm big screen. That's the kind of immersive experience that the people get. And in fact, I had 2 days of workshop, and believe me, from 9 o'clock to 7 o'clock, none of them left their seats. It was that immersive experience that these kind of 3D cinema scopes give.
Definitely. The 3D, when we are teaching them in 3D, it gives a lot of extra information which they would have missed out on a 2D TV, and that perception of depth definitely makes a big impact. I am sure that's correct. And as I saw you in your presentations, you are probably using 2 Sony cameras, and simultaneously you're recording them and then creating these 3D videos. So great job, Saurabh, and all the best. I look forward to you inviting me to your 3D workshop in future. Once you do that, I definitely would like to immerse ourselves in your teaching programs. And
that's on the cards.
how has been your experience with regard to recording for retinal surgeries, because cataract it's easier to record, at least as far as the systems are concerned. But retinal surgery recording, have you tried to compare your videos with the what is shot on the commercial systems?
Yeah, so there is some echo going on. Okay, so for basically, initially I used the simple C-mount cameras, which Sumit had also shown, the Chinese cameras for the anterior segment imaging, which I in fact use for even live workshop, and they did amazing job for the cataract surgery, because I think for cataract we don't need high sensitivity cameras. But as you rightly told, that in one of my videos I showed the two Sony cameras, the same ones that you use for recording retina surgeries. So in fact you get two 4K videos. Okay, the only issue that I have presently is that the recorder records in or the mixer does it only in the 1080p or high definition format. It doesn't have that much of capacity like maybe Ngenuity or commercially available, because they, of course, they will be costly. But when you live stream, in fact they give because there is less compression of the files, they are quite good. And retina surgeries I have recorded now. Only thing you have to do differently, unlike maybe Ngenuity, which has inbuilt settings and they are much higher sensitive cameras maybe they are using, and also two HD cameras making a 4K. Here you have to manually change the settings in between to make it better.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can make it crisp, clear, each and every, both the cameras together, I think it is almost as good as Ngenuity. But because of this mixer is just 1080p, I think it will just reduce the resolution little bit.
Okay. Right. As far as the Ngenuity is concerned, actually, it's not 4K if I'm correct. They are also recording in full HD. Both the cameras are actually in full both recorded in full HD only. Although the Sony display is again 4K display, but their basic input video is still HD only. Okay. Because whenever you are doing a 4K video and live mixing, it's a lot of processing power that is required, and it actually introduces a lag. So to cut down the lag, they usually would try to use the 1080p or 1980 into 1080p, 1920 into 1080p. So that's how it goes. So I would like to look forward to your videos. Keep uploading them. And thank you, all of you, for this wonderful session. I think I enjoyed this session very much. A lot of new things that we learned from each other. Thanks, Sumit. We look forward to hearing from you and learning about your new developments. And definitely, Saurabh, I'm looking forward to your invitation for your next 3D Fekoshala.
Definitely. It will be Retina Shah.
Thank you.
Retina tips.
Thank you, John. Anybody wants to make a comment can quickly do one. Sumit or John, anybody, Mahesh?
No, thank you for holding the session, sir, and bringing the importance of 3D to everybody. And Dr. Patwardhan, I've seen some of your live surgeries, and it is amazing. So to watch it in 3D, I don't usually have my VR box with me. I just try to do parallel live view, and I just look at the phone like this. But it's amazing.
Yeah, I think there are very few people like us at present who make those efforts to see these 3D, and that's why actually initially I started putting a lot of 3D videos on YouTube, but I realized that not many use these gadgets, so then I shifted to 2D.
No. Once the Apple glasses or something like that comes out in the market, I think the interest will be rekindled. Yeah. And I think we are actually 2-3 years ahead of the crowd, probably, with respect to 3D. Hopefully, hoping so that the Apple comes out with the glasses. If they do not come out, or anybody else do not come out, I think 3D may die down, except for some of enthusiasts like us.
There's no good 3D content available and easily accessible. So that is why 3D TVs went down. And we know where the 3D TVs went now.
It's all with sorrow.
So I hope the general public make 3D videos and bring 3D back, then we will find the cost of 3D TVs coming down and everything would be easier. Right now, this is a niche, niche area.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Saurabh. And thank you, John.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the chairperson.
Thank you, Raju sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Sumit. Bye, Mahesh. Bye, John.